I was an Olympic level platform diver, and that experience shaped how I coach today. Before every dive, there's a moment of pause, hesitation, a breath, the fear of messing up, and then you commit. You dive in head first. And that diving board is really the metaphor as to where I meet the sales leaders that I coach now. They're standing on the edge, they're full of potential, facing high expectations, and wondering if they're really ready. So with the diving board, I help them get clear, build confidence, and take that leap. Growth doesn't happen by standing on the platform. At some point, you've got to dive in.
Yes. And then from 8 years old to your All-American status to Olympic status, something tragic happens. Tell me about your injury.
Yeah, right before the 2016 Olympics, the Olympic trials specifically, I was practicing my dives right before I was getting on the plane the next morning to go to the trials. I hit the water the wrong way and I kind of wrecked my spine just right on impact. It didn't look bad. Nobody knew what happened, but my spine kind of looked like that for a long time. So I went right to the hospital and never really dove again after that. So it was pretty dramatic. I really didn't know if I was going to walk again. I did a lot of rehab and PT, but I'm really lucky that it wasn't worse and that I can live a very healthy life and know that whatever happened in that moment was supposed to happen and life always works out. But it was very traumatic at the time.
How has faith guided you through your swimming career to coming out of the injury to entering into leadership roles in sales
Yeah.
and now becoming Taylor, the sales coach?
I have always believed, like since I was 6 years old, before I even started diving, good things always happen to me. That's just a fundamental, another belief that I have is that good things always happen. And the more you say that, the more good things happen. So every situation that I'm in, I know something good is going to happen. And that's the way that I always look at the obstacles that are in front of me, whether it's learning a new dive, hiring a new sales rep, going through a reorg or, layoffs, or working with a client. Good things are going to happen if we put in that effort and we show up with the best intentions. So that belief and the faith that I have that everything will work out has what really given me more resilience, I think, than most people to overcome those obstacles.
Taylor, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
From the diving board to the boardroom, a sales coach, a former Olympic level athlete, and a bold leadership advocate. I know you are going to bring with you an empowering message about what it really takes to lead with clarity, confidence, and consistency. Taylor, before we start, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Yes, thank you so much. Before I ever led a team or made a sales call, I was a diver. I spent 10 years on the 10-meter platform, diving competitively at the Division 1 level and training like it was my full-time job. It taught me a lot how to focus under pressure, how to push through fear, how to show up and deliver even when I didn't feel ready. I didn't know it then, but that mindset of boldness, preparation, and calculated risk is what would carry me through the rest of my career. After graduating college, I took my first sales job. I was selling portable oxygen concentrators, making hundreds of calls a week, and it was just me, a quota, and a desk phone. That year, I made President's Club, and I went on to hit it again and again because of those fundamentals I learned from diving. Over the next 10 years, I moved from SDR to AE and then into leadership, first as a frontline manager, then as a director, building teams across inside sales, BDRs, and enterprise reps. I have hired and interviewed hundreds of reps and coached many of them through promotions, especially from rep to manager, which I think is one of the most overlooked and under-supported transitions in tech sales. I've also led through some of the hardest moments in leadership, talking about reorgs, missed quarters, team burnout, layoffs. I've had to sit across from people that I hired, coached, and truly believed in, and still let them go. And I believe those moments change you. They teach you what kind of leader you really are and what kind of leader you want to be. When I think about what it looks like to be a great rep or a leader, it's not just the numbers, it's coachability, curiosity, and ownership. The ability to take feedback and run with it. Not
Hmm.
perfectly, but with the intention to grow. And when I look back at the leaders who shaped me the most, they didn't just know how to manage, they knew how to coach. And that led me to what I do today. Now I coach new tech sales leaders, helping them with clarity, consistency, and confidence. And I do that through my resilient revenue program.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very great intro. And I think many people can relate to that, especially those in sports.
Yeah.
From being in sports in a team where it's very competitive and
Mm.
everybody wants to be at the top. But at the end of the day, there's only one person that wins. And in addition to that, there's only one team that wins. So, can you tell me about your experience as a team player and as an individual contributor within the sports team?
Yeah, diving is interesting because in diving, it is just you on the board, right? You have your coach and yourself. You are on a team, but it really is about you and what you're going to do. And so, diving, I think that's where I learned how to handle that pressure and take what I knew I was capable of and really put my belief in myself to go out there and accomplish those big goals. But what's interesting about the sport that I did in diving is that you can do what's called synchronized diving. And so you
Mm,
have someone side by side, and that's where it changes from all about you to what is that person beside me doing and how can I help them? Because if I do a great
yeah.
dive and they don't, it all is bad. It doesn't matter because we're not synchronized. So that
Hmm.
really taught me how to support someone else while working to accomplish those big goals. To me, it's all about having clarity and confidence in each other, even in athletics.
Yeah. I think, yeah, the synchronized diving, I think I've watched that and I think it's interesting that both of you jump from the board and both of you land into the water. And the goal is to minimize splash as much as possible, right? And so that is the is like in leadership, there's that secret silence or there's that silence that leaders have to move with. And I think you've learned that very well through the diving process. So tell
It,
me, from the moment you walk into the board and the moment before you take the leap and to dive, what are you thinking about at that time?
right before, I think there is a lot of thoughts that go through your head, right? So, one of the biggest things you have to learn is how to manage your mindset. Because when it is so quiet in the diving pool, right? When you are competing, if you remember the Olympics, you can hear a
Yeah,
pin. And so you need your head to get that calm, right? And it's all about trusting yourself and the preparation that you've done to be there. And so for me, I would always go over three things I would remind myself of, right? Do this, do this, do this. And that's it.
hmm,
Then it's just one, two, three, go. And trusting that I was prepared, my muscles were prepared to execute the dive how I do it in practice.
yeah. And you are diving from 10 meters,
Yes.
right? That's a long free fall. What are you thinking when you're in the air before you splash?
I would actually say it goes so fast
Yeah,
that your eyes are open, just so people know that. Like your eyes are open, you're spotting everything. It's hard to comprehend how many thoughts you have, but it goes so quickly. So you're just like squeeze, like because you're in a tuck, right? And then it's like
yeah,
you see the water, kick. And so it so much is muscle memory and just being able to have those fast reactions, which you need
yeah,
in leadership. You have to make quick decisions and you need to be bold when you do it.
yeah. And if you don't dive well, you just go back up and try again. And you keep doing that until you become an expert in that. So now that you've done this for a long time, you are an All-American, you are in the national team in Canada, and now you are at the Olympic. How do you feel now the next time when you are in the Olympic and you're about to jump? Do you feel any type of fear?
I would say it's not a fear of doing the dive, right? It's about doing the dive to your best of your ability, right? In
Yeah,
front of the judges, in front of the world, right? If I was at world championships, it's not about me being scared of being able to do it. It's can I perform in this specific moment to do it at the highest level? And it's managing that pressure. Just like if someone was to hop on a sales call or go into an executive board meeting, You can have all your stats, but can you present in that moment? Can you do the dive in that moment? That's what
Yeah.
matters.
Now, that's a good segue about pressure and talking about individual contributor, who is a rep, aspiring to be a leader. Tell me, how do you move? What's your experience like? And what do you think that these new sales leaders might need to know from moving from individual contributor to a sales leader? Tell me. I can
That's
picture it as the moment of walking to a board and taking your
yeah.
first jump until you become an expert.
Yes, the transition from being an individual contributor to leading a team is so vast because you know how to do that job, right? And you've done it well. And that's why you've been asked to lead the team. But it really comes down to a mindset shift of it's no longer just about me, it's about we. And I can't be that same person for everybody, and not everybody's going to be just like me, but I have to support them with where they're at and help them get to that level in all multitudes of different ways, but it's really taking the focus off of yourself and putting the focus on other people to multiply your experience, to multiply results.
Yeah. How did your Olympic level training shape your mindset to approach corporate life like that?
Yeah. I would say that my diving experience made me the person I am today. It's the foundations for everything that I believe in, where I know that hard work pays off. The harder I work, the luckier I get, right? That's one of the things that I wholeheartedly believe in, and you can apply that to all aspects of life. And knowing that when I consistently train, when I consistently show up with a good attitude, that's when results happen. And that's exactly the attitude that I always brought to my sales and leadership career. If I invest the time and the effort in people, the results will come. But I have to put that foot forward to invest in them.
Yeah. And sometimes in diving, sometimes there's neck to neck. The next person dives better than you, and you have to go up and challenge. So tell
Yeah.
me, have you been in a high stakes leadership situation, high stakes discussion or conversation, and how do you approach that?
Yeah, a lot of high stakes conversations. I was responsible for building out a brand new sales department at one of the companies that I was at. And I was really challenging with another manager to get that role. And so, in a lot of conversations, they would have ideas, and I needed to make sure that I presented my unique ideas in a stronger, more compelling, and more bold way to make sure that
Hmm.
I stood out as the front leader, that's someone that could run the team. So keeping my personal brand with that in all those presentations, right? Being bold, being confident, I think is what set me up to step ahead in those
Hmm.
places.
Yeah. I used to do sports also. I ran track. I played soccer also. So in the fall, I'll do one or the other.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, we'll be on the road traveling in the bus. A lot of people are doing homework in the bus. For me, I wasn't feeling comfortable to do homework in the bus because the bus is bumpy, people are chatting. So I will wait until we get to the hostels or to the dorm rooms. Then that's when I will start doing my homework late at night. And in the morning, I would wake up and I have to go to a regular job before class.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you have similar experience where you are traveling on the road and you have to juggle all these many things and
Yeah.
still make life happen. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, my diving career was my full-time job when I was a student, when I was in
Yeah.
college. It's what I did all day. I mean, we trained over 40 hours a week. So I totally understand that, where you have to do homework on the plane, right? Do presentations remotely, all of those things. And I'm really lucky that I had a great support system to help me manage all of that. But that really did help me build my time management skills, which has really
Mhm.
separated me from the pack in a leadership role of knowing how to juggle multiple things and keep my priorities in line. When I was in grade 12, I'll just share this small story. I didn't do 5 days of school in one week from September through May because I was traveling for diving so often.
Mm.
So there was a lot going on, but I was able to have my time management, my support system, and really make sure that I was successful in school, in diving, and then in sales.
And you started at 8 years old when
Yeah,
nobody knows anything.
exactly.
But you had a mission to start diving. Was that competitive at that time?
It did start very competitive. My sister, she started diving, and that's how I got into it. She did a summer camp, so I started that with her. And I think within 6 months, I was a competitive diver.
And then from 8 years old to your All-American status to Olympic status, something tragic happens. Tell me about your injury.
Yeah, right before the 2016 Olympics, the Olympic trials specifically, I was practicing my dives right before I was getting on the plane the next morning to go to the trials. I hit the water the wrong way and I kind of wrecked my spine just right on impact. It didn't look bad. Nobody knew what happened, but my spine kind of looked like that for a long time. So I
Mhm.
went right to the hospital and never really dove again after that. So it was pretty dramatic. I really didn't know if I was going to walk again. I did a lot of rehab and PT, but I'm really lucky that it wasn't worse and that I can live a very healthy life and know that whatever happened in that moment was supposed to happen and
Mhm.
life always works out. But it was very traumatic at the time.
Yeah, that brings me to faith. How has faith guided you through your swimming career to coming out of the injury to entering into roles in sales
Yeah.
and now becoming Taylor, the sales coach?
I have always believed, like since I was 6 years old, before I even started diving, good things always happen to me. That's just a fundamental, another belief that I have is that good things always happen. And the more you say that, the more good things happen. So every situation that I'm in, I know something good is going to happen. And that's the way that I always look at the obstacles that are in front of me, whether it's learning a new dive, hiring a new sales rep, going through a reorg or, layoffs, or working with a client. Good things are going to happen if we put in that effort and we show up with the best intentions. So that belief and the faith that I have that everything will work out has what really given me more resilience, I think, than most people to overcome those obstacles.
And now, after being in the corporate life, you decide to become a coach. Tell me, what was the turning point from swimming to corporate life to deciding to be a sales coach?
Yeah, I love coaching people. When I first got my first leadership role, I was doing individual contributing and selling at the same time and leading. So I was doing both of those things. And once I started leading a team, I realized I loved when someone else closed a deal more than I did. And I had that realization that it meant so much more to me to help someone else accomplish their goals. And so I felt that I knew I loved coaching. I loved helping someone improve. And then when I got to do it with leaders and sales reps full time, was so excited. But why I wanted to make that transition is because I love coaching people that want to be coached, people that are hungry for feedback, who really want to improve and to grow. And by coaching full time, working with people who want that, that is one of the most empowering and motivating areas that I can focus in on.
I think that's a powerful transition and transformation, and especially when your goal is to change people's lives. It can be women in leadership, it can be new sales leader. And I know you mentioned before you moved from individual contributor to a leadership role. Can you tell me about the gap between preparation and promotion to leadership roles?
Yes.
What gaps did you have to overcome?
Yeah, there is such a gap, right? So you have the skills of how to do the job, right? You have done the selling, you know how to close, how to do discovery, all of those tactical skills, but nobody sits you down and teaches you how to have a tough conversation, how to
Yeah.
lead one-on-one to get the most out of somebody. How do you dig deeper into why somebody wants to be successful? There was
Mhm.
no manual for me to read to learn those things. And it was expected and is still expected by so many people to just jump into the seat to know how to motivate somebody. to be
Mm-hmm.
more successful than they are, or to challenge the way they think in a positive and motivating environment. And it's how to cultivate an energized and collected team. That's so
Yeah.
important, what the culture looks like on your team. And it's the manager's job to set that. So those are those gaps that people don't know what to do. And they just start, crumbling under that pressure.
Yeah. Let's talk about pressure. What are some of the most common mindset traps that you see new sales leaders face?
I mean, overwhelm,
Yeah.
huge one, right?
Yeah.
Where there's so much going on and you're so overwhelmed, you just shut down. You don't even know how to do your fundamentals anymore.
Yeah.
That's a really big one where you just pause and kind of have to step back because you're so overwhelmed with so many things that are out of your control. I think that is the next one, is that lack of control. That is a
Mm-hmm.
huge problem for new leaders because they aren't they can't do the job of everyone on their team, but all they can do is support them, push them, and motivate them to do their job successfully. So how do you give up that control of your success and trust it in other people? I think that's very difficult. And the last one is just the stress, right? So
Mm-hmm.
much pressure, so many responsibilities, so many people to manage, and they get stressed out, they burn out, and then they need a break. And things are worse when they come back because they have no structure in place. So those would be the big three for me that leaders
Yeah.
really need to work on.
And especially new leaders will feel those and they will be unaware of these things coming and they
Yes.
need to be hyper aware of these things.
Yeah.
Is there a moment where you've walked to a diving board and walked away instead of diving?
Yes. We always called it the walk of shame. When you would get on the end of the board and not do your dive and have to walk down the ladder, right? When you're 10 feet, 10 meters in the air, that's an embarrassing walk. So we would
Yeah.
call it the walk of shame, but I've done it more than I would like to admit because of that
Yeah.
fear, because of the pressure, because of the stress of everything that could go wrong, even if I knew I could do it well, but it's
And
scary.
that's the point. Yeah, that's the point. You've walked away from the diving board many times, but you still came back strong. And that same logic applies in leadership, in team performance, in stepping up to do great things. I think that's powerful, especially in women. How important is women in leadership?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question. Women in leadership is so important because there is such a gap in, the male and female perspective, but women bring such different empathy, such different mindsets, and such different approach to leadership. And not everyone is going to relate to one type of leader, right? We can teach all of the skills, and there are so many great qualities of leaders, but not everyone is going to be the same. And the way I lead can be totally different than the way you lead, but we can
Mhm.
both be incredible, kind, and empathetic leaders. And by having more women in those seats, there are more women like me 10 years ago who I can look up to and want to aspire to be. So when we
Yeah.
have women in these leadership roles, we are encouraging more of them to come through and showing them there are multitudes of ways to become a great leader.
Yeah, that's very true. So what advice do you have for any women out there who are hesitating in pursuing their next goal or next career opportunity because of self-doubt and things like that? What advice do you have for them?
Biggest thing I would tell them is to trust their gut. Your
Mm-hmm.
instincts will take you so much further than you realize if you follow your heart and do what you believe in, right? You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to have the most experience. But if you trust your gut and show up confidently, that will give people trust in you. They will respect you and they will want you to take those leadership roles.
What if some of them still trust their guts, but they still doubt themselves? So, like maybe imposter syndrome. Can you speak, if you've experienced this from experience, can you speak to this and
Totally.
help them how to get out of it?
I would say that everybody experiences imposter syndrome. I think if you
True.
say you
Yeah.
didn't, you've been lying. And
Yeah.
everybody has those, why am I here?
Yeah.
How are you possibly going to think I can do this? And I've had so many of those moments where it's like, how am I possibly tasked to do this? But I always believe you got to fake it till you make it. Put yourself out there and fail. Fail quickly, fail forward, but do it and do it scared.
Just like before you jump off the diving board, you just jump off and just let the free fall take control.
I
Well,
never learned a new dive without being scared, but you have to do it. If you do it
yeah,
once, you can do it again.
yeah. Will Smith was always scared of going skydiving, and he has this video. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen
Oh,
that video?
no, I haven't.
But he talks about how scared he was going skydiving. And when they were about to jump off, he was very scared, almost shouting and wanting to come back into the plane until they pushed him down.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he went flying down out of control until he reached like terminal velocity. And he felt very free and just floating and he had so much control
Mhm.
even mid-air. So that's that's the type of leap that
Mhm.
most people need. You just need to take that next step and let everything take control. Now, switching to our main first question. How do you define your personal brand and what problem does it solve exactly?
Yes, we've talked about this a lot so far, but my personal brand is all about confidence and consistency. It is about helping new sales leaders rise to the pressures of leadership with clarity through that confidence and consistency. So I stand for bold coaching, clear expectations, and practical systems that actually help people lead well. And I'm very direct, but supportive. So, meaning
Yeah.
I don't sugarcoat the hard stuff or waste time with fluff, but I help leaders think strategically, show up with confidence, and build teams that perform without second guessing themselves anymore, right? What's your gut instinct telling you to do and do it
Mhm.
quickly? So the
Yeah.
problem that I solve with those new leaders is the lack of confidence and consistency. It's that gap
Mhm.
we talked about from between being promoted and being prepared. Most new
Mhm.
leaders are given a title with targets, but not the tools to get them done, right? So
Yeah.
I give them frameworks, coaching, and mindset to lead with purpose and deliver results.
Before I ask you about framework, what's one underrated skill that affects team performance the most?
How to have a one-on-one conversation. People don't know how to communicate anymore. And
Yeah.
having a productive, confident, empathetic conversation where you and I can both be human and understand each other and accomplish something at the end of that conversation is such an underrated skill.
And how does empathy look like in sales, especially where there is so much accountability to meet the metrics?
Yeah.
And also in an environment where the investor profitability is ranked number one compared to other things. How does empathy in sales look like?
I love this question because people assume that when you're empathetic or when you're kind, it means that you're not going to be critical or give productive feedback or call out the bad stuff that's going on, for lack of a better phrase, right? Being
Mhm.
empathetic means understanding what someone is dealing with, right? Understanding how much pressure they're under, acknowledging what they're working on and trying so hard to do. But empathy is also kind, which is also clear feedback. If I'm not telling you how to improve, I'm not being kind, right?
Mhm.
That's not helpful. And so, how I approach that is I can be kind, but also clear and hold you accountable to what you are responsible for, but always keeping the person at the front of your mind, right? Acknowledging what they're going through and how they feel, but we have a job to accomplish.
One of the hidden skills in leadership is how leaders allow people to fail without judgment immediately. Tell me, in sales culture, how is it sustainable? How is this sustainable when one of your number one metrics is how many sales you're closing, how many calls you're closing and calling, or how do we, how many times are you going to forgive them or to allow them to fail?
I believe in failing forward, and there are so many ways that you
Yeah,
can fail. But if you're failing doing the same thing over and over
yeah,
again, that's to me when there is a bigger problem. If you're failing because you're trying all these new things that I'm asking you to do. You've changed this, like all of these things. If that's why you're failing because you're trying to implement my coaching, I will be so much more lenient and really invest my time because you have high potential, right? There's a metrics that I like to have. It's low performer, low values, high performer, high values, right? So wherever you fall
Mhm.
on that matrix is where you want to spend your time as a leader. If you're a high values person with low performance, put your time there all day because they'll get there. Those are the people you want to see fail because they'll figure it out. If you have low values and you're a low performer, those are the people where if you're making those same mistakes, we have a big problem.
And I'm guessing that's one of your framework is a metrics, is a high value and performance metrics.
Yeah, yeah. It
Which
helps you
which
know who to
quadrant?
spend time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead.
It helps you know who to spend time with, who to keep your eyes on, right? If you have high values and you're a high performer, you are going to be my next leaders, right? You are going to
Mhm.
be my next enterprise sales rep, let's say. But those people have it, and we need to make sure they can continue to level up. The people with high values and low performance, we can make them those high performers.
Which quadrant do most sales leaders or reps stay the most in?
I would say they stay the most in high values, low performance, or high values, high performance, because you can keep your job, right? Those are
Yeah.
the quadrants where you get to stay, you can make mistakes, and you can kick targets out of the park. The concerning metric to me is the low values, high performers, because those are the people that are not good for everybody else. They might
Yeah.
get the results, they're bringing in revenue, but it is a
Hmm.
detriment to the rest of the company because of their
Hmm.
impact on other people. So
Yeah.
those are ones where, as a leader, you have to manage appropriately and see, can we make them a high values, high performer? And if
Yeah.
not, that's where you have to balance if their revenue is worth everybody else's.
Yeah. And I think it will be true for any profession, for most people who are high achievers to be in the high value and low performance. You can be, at one point, you can be high value, high performance, but then you are set every time you are resetting your baseline. You are a high performance, you are resetting your performance. And any small thing you do as a very high performer, it doesn't look good on you. So you always have to set that stage all the time. So I can see why on the that's on the top quadrant, right? Top right quadrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people always aspire to be there and to keep improving there. So that's good. One thing I wanted to ask about empathy again. Can you share about a profound moment where empathy had a significant effect on your life or somebody else's life?
Yeah. One of the stories I'll share is my husband and I went through infertility to have our daughter. And so I was going through IVF. And if people know what IVF is, it's a very challenging process to go through to have a baby. And I was dealing with that privately and also directing a whole program. So I was in a very stressful job situation. And eventually, one day, I just had a meltdown with my manager because I respected her a lot and she really cared about me. She always put me in positions to succeed. And so I was very honest with her one day about what I was going through, and she was very empathetic with me, understanding
Hmm.
what I was dealing with outside of work and how I was balancing the two because of all the time management skills that I learned before. I was doing both well,
Hmm.
but eventually, I needed to delegate some of the work that I was dealing with to somebody else. So she really worked with me through that, through her empathy, to teach me a new leadership skill of how to delegate. I didn't have to do everything. I could let other people do that, but I didn't know how. So we took that moment of empathy, understanding how much pressure I was under, and she taught me something new.
Yeah, yeah, that's powerful, you know. And empathy, people think that is one-sided. You are a strong advocate of empathy and empowerment, and you receive this reciprocal empathy from your manager just by being transparent and open about the struggles because everybody is always struggling with something.
Yes. I think the
Yeah.
more empathetic you are, the more people will be empathetic with you, right? It's just about kindness. right? If you present yourself one way, people will show up that way for you if you surround yourself with the right people. And because of how I show up, she was able to show up that way as well.
Yeah, and sorry to hear about that experience. I know, yeah, one of our friends also went through the same thing, and eventually now they have two kids. Or no, they
Amazing.
have one kid and they have another one on their way. So it's
Congratulations
all,
to them. It's
yeah,
great.
always, yeah, faith and belief and just staying consistent, like you said. So that's powerful. Empathy is very important. I know I told this in the last podcast. Kim Scott has a book about radical candor. Care personally, challenge directly. So you don't want to just empathize with people without giving them the right kind of feedback. So
Yeah.
talk to me about more about your coaching framework. You told me about the performance and high value metrics framework. Do you
Mhm.
have another one?
Yeah, one that I would love to talk about off the top of my head is the care framework. So, this is how I like to approach tough conversations with my team, right? So, care, so clarify the issue. When we go into a tough conversation, let's say someone's not hitting their revenue targets, clarify the issue. The issue is that you have missed target 2 quarters in a row. A is to acknowledge the situation they have, right? Why is this happening? What are you dealing with? What do you think is going on here? We have to acknowledge that this is a problem. R is for reflection, right? Reflection, why is this impactful for our team? Hey, you've missed target 2 times in a row. It's making it very difficult for our whole department to be successful moving forward. Making sure they understand that reflection and the expectation, and E goes to expectation. My expectation is that we can walk out of here with a mutual goal of you hitting this target, and how are we going to do that together? So expectations and engaging collaboratively with them.
I think that's a powerful framework. So let me repeat it for people.
C is clarify the issue. A
Clarify, yeah,
is
yeah.
acknowledge, yeah. R, reflect. E, expectations and engage collaboratively.
I think it goes well with your empathy aspect, and I can see it how it can be a very important aspect of coaching. Which brings me to my next question about ambition and impossibly high standards. How do you help leaders approach this tension between ambition and impossibly high standards as you
This
coach them through this?
Great question. I'm really excited about this because
All
this
right.
is something of the people that I like to surround myself that they have, right? You become like the people you spend the most time with. So I want to surround myself with people with high expectations, but those people are usually so stressed out and so overwhelmed with all of the pressure that's put on them. So I think we should always celebrate that ambition. One of my biggest things as a leader is that we have to take every opportunity to celebrate wins, right? You can have these master goals, but we need to celebrate all the little milestones along the way to get there. And to me, that is one of the ways that we can overcome and work through all of those high expectations that are put on us because we are acknowledging the progress we're making towards those goals.
And now another good segue about bold actions. Talk to me about bold actions in that scenario.
Yes. Bold actions here, right? We have to stand up for what we believe in. When you have a problem, you need to be bold in your solution, right? This is how I'm going to handle this problem, and this is why. And to me, that why is why people will trust you and respect your leadership. Some people take a long time to come up with decisions, and other people make them fast, quick, with reason behind them. And
Yeah,
those are the people that I think it's easier to trust and stand behind to run towards that solution.
yeah. As I asked that question, even myself, I was feeling chills because it's something I'm very passionate about. And I always feel sad when I see people with so much potential hesitating, taking that one action that can change everything for them. So I just want to tell them, like for my message is take intentional control of your life. So I want them to take that action. Do you have a message that you tell people like you're advising them, coaching them, they're not listening? Some people will swear, but that doesn't work. So what do you tell them?
To me, you tell them just go for it. It's the Nike slogan. To me, it doesn't
Just
have to
do
be
it.
complicated, right? I think
Yeah.
a lot of messages and lessons get over complicated. We can keep it really simple. Make a decision and go for it.
And there's some level of vulnerability.
Mhm.
What role does vulnerability plays in confident leadership?
Yeah, I think it's really important as a leader to acknowledge when you make a mistake, but also to explain why that mistake happened, right? I decided to do this because of XYZ. And this is, I think, why it didn't work. And this is how I'll improve my decision going forward, right? I learned this lesson. I didn't know it before, but now I do. And so I can make sure that we're all in a better position to win moving forward. So when people hide behind their mistakes and don't own them, that causes a lot of distrust on the team. So when I made a mistake with my team, I would
Mhm.
stand there and tell them, hey, I'm really sorry we did this. But if I implemented a new tool, let's say, and it didn't work, I'm sorry I put you
Yeah.
guys through that. We learned this though. And so going forward for our next one, we'll be able to do that differently.
Yeah. And relationship is very important. Tell me about relationship centric culture in sales. Tell me about the importance of relationship in sales.
Yeah, with your clients, it's important, but also rep to rep, manager to manager, and manager to rep. So I think on a team, psychological safety is one of the biggest things where people can be vulnerable. The leader can be vulnerable. And so it goes both ways. You really have to earn that psychological safety within the group. And then they will have that one-on-one trust with you as well to tell you, hey, I really don't know how to do this. Can you help me? And that's a very hard statement for people to make. But when we build the relationship that is personal, but also can be productive for work, that's where
Yeah.
you can have those changing moments.
If there's a conversation going on in a sales environment, you see your team talking. I know you are as a leader, sometimes people tend to ignore. Do you dive in and join them?
Yeah, why not? You have to, right? You want to
Yeah.
be in this group. If they're talking about things, obviously you want them to come to you first, but if you are putting them in an environment to build trust between themselves and have those conversations, if they're welcoming for the manager to be there, to me, that means you're doing something right.
And that brings me to the importance of storytelling. Do you agree that there is power in storytelling?
100%. That is the best
Yeah.
way for people to learn.
Yeah, especially in sales. Every time you meet a new client, the only thing that they're going to remember is not your product, but is how you made them feel through your story. Every leader needs to be ready with at least 5 stories in the back pocket as a toolkit, because
Yeah.
there's many situations that will come up and you might have to address the team. One of
Mhm.
the stories is the origin story, or a visual story, or a purpose story, or a now what story, and so on. Do you have a leadership story?
Definitely. Yes. I think those are really important. And that's the way I communicate on LinkedIn is all
Yeah.
through stories because that's how people learn and can relate to you.
Can you tell me one? I know you've told me one story already, but can you tell me one leadership story that you always look forward to sharing with them?
Yes. One of my favorite leadership stories is actually one of my reps was going through a breakup. They lived with their partner. They were a high performer. They were high values, high performer. And because I had that metric, they were dropping, right? They stopped performing very well. And so in those conversations with him, because my exec team started noticing what's going on with this guy, right? So we had
Hmm.
to dive in and we didn't have a lot of trust at the time. And that was really difficult to have those conversations, but we built that trust. I cared about him. And so we got him to open up what's going on, right? I used the care framework. Clarify
Hmm.
the issue. We don't have the results that we need. Let's acknowledge the issue. What's going on? Well, I'm breaking up with my partner. I need to find a new place to live. I don't know what's going on. We've been together for 10 years, the whole thing, right? By acknowledging what he was going through, we were able to build a plan together and give him time to become accustomed to his new life, deal with all of his issues, but also show up at work in a productive way. So that's where we're able to create that trust, build upon it, and make sure that he's successful at work where I have the most control, but also make sure he's set up for success outside of the office because that's leadership, right? It's not just about helping someone sell more, it's about helping me become a better person.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful story and connection. And I think now you've told me two stories. One of them was your own story, how you were transparent to your manager. And this is the other way around where you notice another person going through similar thing. So that's powerful. Talk to me a bit about confidence, consistency, and
Confidence, clarity, and consistency.
yes,
Those are,
talk to me about those.
yeah. So to me, confidence is the way you show up, right? So when you're leading a team, if you show up looking like you don't know, people aren't going to know if they should trust you. So you need to show up in a way that lets them know, I've got this and I've got you, right? So that's the confidence piece. The consistency is that they know how to expect me to show up every single day. That is the way I will present myself in this meeting, in this meeting, in the morning, in the afternoon. If you need me on the weekend, this is who I am and this is how I'll show up. People need to know what to expect from you every single day. And so it's by showing up and doing those things consistently, then with the clarity, right? If I
Yeah.
tell them the expectations, people want to know what they need to do to be successful. And if we're
Yes.
not clear on what success looks like and what failure looks like, they're going to be wandering. No matter how confident or consistent you are, they will wander if they don't have clarity.
Yeah. This brings me to one of our most important questions that I ask all the guests. Do you have a personal brand symbol and how do you use it every day in your life?
Yes, I think people might be able to guess what my brand symbol is after this whole conversation, but it's the diving board,
Yeah.
right? As you know, I was an Olympic level platform diver, and that experience shaped how I coach today. Before every dive, there's a moment of pause, hesitation, a breath, the fear of messing up, and then you commit. You dive in head first. And that diving board is really the metaphor as to where I meet the sales leaders that I coach now. They're standing on the edge, they're full of potential, facing high expectations, and wondering if they're really ready. So, with the diving board, I help them get clear, build confidence, and take that leap. So, the way I
Oh,
think about it every day is that growth doesn't happen by standing on the platform. At some point, you've got to dive in.
yes. Even if the water is very shallow.
I wouldn't do it then, maybe. Then you'll really hurt yourself. We should think that one through.
Then, yeah, you have to have good judgment there. So I
Yeah.
like it. That's why I like your clarity, confidence, and I keep forgetting the third one.
Consistency. You got the three C's.
Consistency, yeah. Clarity, confidence, and consistency. So that was a good connection there with your diving board. I also used to do acrobatics. I
Oh my
did a
gosh.
lot of somersaults, so I know
Yeah.
I know how fun it is into taking a quick sprint,
Mhm.
cartwheel, and then
Yeah.
jumping without like going up in the air and then landing. So
Yeah.
it's a powerful metaphor. I like it. Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Oh, yes, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. Rapid fire questions. Biggest myth about leadership.
Oh, that you have to have all the answers. You don't. You will learn just as much from your team as they will learn from you. And it's okay to not know.
Agreed. I think somebody had the same thing last time. One book every business leader should read.
It's Your Ship. It's by the best captain in the Navy. Highly recommend. I don't remember his name, but It's Your Ship. Changed the
Powerful.
way I think about leadership. Yeah.
I think I have to go look it up. I'm
It's
sure
a,
it has to do something with the direction.
it's really great. Yeah, I love this book.
Morning routine or a night owl?
Morning, 100%. I wake up ready to roll every single day. I want to accomplish all of your big goals in the morning. By the evening, I'm ready for bed.
Good. One thing people always get wrong about you.
This one is interesting. Hmm. I think sometimes people mistake fast decisions for not thinking them through. And just because I make a fast decision doesn't mean it's not well thought out.
Yes, because you told me yesterday that you are going to be a quick thinker. You are going to see, I'm going to be a quick thinker.
Yeah.
So actually, that's one thing I've noticed. If leaders have this kind of trait, whenever they join a new team, they tell them, I usually ask a lot of questions. So don't take my questioning and mistake it as if I don't trust you. I'm just asking so that we can be on the same page.
Mhm.
So if I'm thinking first, it's because I'm trying to generate and brainstorm with you on the spot,
Yeah.
as long as you're upfront with it.
Right.
Diving off a platform or cold calling, which one scares you the most?
Now it would be diving because I haven't done it in a while. But um, diving, cold calling isn't scary. You just
Yeah.
have to know why you're calling and believe that you can help somebody.
Yeah. First word that comes to mind when you hear the word sales leadership.
Trust.
That's a very good answer. Without trust, I'm not buying.
You're not buying, you're not leading, people won't follow you.
Yeah. If you weren't in this industry, what would you be doing?
I would be a diving coach. It's kind
Easy,
of
right?
the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you do diving coach on the side now?
No, I am a yoga teacher, but I want to get more involved back in diving again. Yeah.
Good. If leadership had a soundtrack, what would your theme song be?
Don't stop believing.
Good answer. Good song.
Yeah.
Who sings that one?
Journey.
What's next for you? Any big adventures coming up?
Yes, I'm very excited. I have a webinar coming out on Tuesday, so it's live. It's for new sales leaders. We're going to talk about coaching and having productive conversations, one of the biggest gaps in leadership. So I host webinars every 2 weeks. Feel free to come join me there. And I'm launching a new program for leaders and sellers. So we're going to do weekly group calls. Really excited for the collaboration that's going to happen there.
For next week, what's the title of the webinar?
Building a coaching system that scales.
Good. What's the best advice you've ever received? What's the best advice you've ever received?
You're stronger than you think you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just works for everything in
Many
diving,
people,
in sales,
yeah.
in life.
Many people undermine their current level of excellence. They don't know that the next one is even what they can achieve.
Yeah.
What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Well, in diving, almost all of them were pretty big risks when you're flying through the air. But the biggest risk I ever took was to build out a new program department, putting myself on that stage to build something responsible for a lot of revenue and for people's jobs. I took that very seriously. That was a very big risk for myself, for the company, and all of the people involved. And now I think the biggest risk is doing my own coaching business and building up something for myself, knowing I can help other people.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. If anybody is watching this, a new sales leader, any women who wants to be in leadership, what advice do you have for them?
I would tell them to find a mentor, find someone who can help you have those tough conversations, put you in the right position to be noticed, right? Network, find somebody that you can work with and that you trust in that will set you up for success.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to work with you, now just assuming that they have liked everything that you've said from clarity to confidence and all that, what do you have to tell them?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message there, Taylor Martino. I do a 12-week leadership course for new leaders where we meet bi-weekly and weekly for group calls. And I basically give you the playbook I wish I had when I stepped into leadership.
Yeah, Taylor, it's been nice chatting with you, and I hope people are going to enjoy this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a good day. When you asked me to connect to be on a podcast, I liked what you told me, and your mission is very great, especially in helping new sales leaders. So that's powerful. Anybody can connect with you. So today we've talked about clarity, confidence, women empowerment, taking bold action, and also overcoming challenges. Like you broke your back or your spine, and you still got up, and through your faith, you went into corporate leadership, and now you are coaching sales leaders. We also talk about the importance of empathy, how you yourself, somebody saw that you needed some empathy also, and you yourself, you've seen some of your team members, and you approach them and help them when they needed you the most. So all those stories are powerful. I liked your stories about how you helped this person who was going through breakup, and how your manager helped you through the infertility, which most women are actually going through. And that alone can stop them from going after the next promotion because they are always thinking about that and forgetting to think about themselves. So today's discussion has been very powerful. I like your framework about the high value and importance metrics. I think anybody should aspire to be on the top quadrant, right? And I also like your framework, the care framework. I think that's also powerful that you use in your leadership coaching. And anybody coming to you, they're always fighting something. And you have a tool, you have your tools ready to help them. So this discussion was very powerful in my view, and you're always welcome back to this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this conversation, getting to talk to you about the importance of leadership. And I love the questions. They were very fun. So I appreciate it. And I'm excited to have more conversations like this in the future.
Yeah.